If you are watching this video right now, it is not by accident. You have arrived at that suffocating, intimate moment where something inside you begins to rupture. You cannot name it precisely, but you feel it. A violent knowing that you cannot continue living this way. Not one more day. Not one more manufactured smile. Not one more performance of the person everyone expects you to be. There is a crack running through the center of your life. An invisible fracture separating who you are from who you have been pretending to be. And that crack is widening. You feel it every morning when you open your eyes. You feel it in every conversation that means nothing. You feel it in the hollow applause for achievements that never mattered to you in the first place. This is not a coincidence. This is inevitability. Carl Jung called this phenomenon the call to individuation. A psychic emergency where the soul violently refuses to continue living under masks constructed to please, to survive, to disappear into acceptability. This video is not entertainment. It is not comfort. It is a confrontation. A symbolic mirror that reaches you exactly when your conscious mind has exhausted all its defenses, but your unconscious already knows. It is time to stop lying. This is the moment when normal life reveals its true architecture. An automated prison designed by other people's fears, worn-out social scripts, and promises that were never meant to be kept. Perhaps you are in a relationship that is slowly draining the life force from your body, or trapped in a career that pays your bills while murdering your soul in silent increments. Maybe what imprisons you is more insidious. The shame of disappointing your parents, the terror of social rejection, the crushing weight of a path that was drawn for you, but never by you. Jung warned that the greatest danger of modern existence is not chaos, but unconscious adaptation to the inauthentic. The real catastrophe is not failure. It is living a life that was never yours and dying without ever realizing it. And that is precisely why the call comes through suffering. When the psyche has tried every gentle method to alert the ego, through dreams, through quiet desperation, through emotional exhaustion, and has been systematically ignored, it escalates. What began as discomfort transforms into despair. What was doubt becomes anguish. What felt like fatigue reveals itself as total collapse. Then, something remarkable happens. You begin to magnetize exactly the messages, symbols, and confrontations you need to awaken. Not because the universe is mystical, but because your soul is actively hunting for the keys to escape its internal prison. This is the moment you find videos like this one. Because the unconscious, as Jung described, possesses symbolic intelligence, and it speaks loudest when the ego is finally desperate enough to listen. You may think you stumbled upon this video randomly, but nothing is random when it comes to the soul's survival. The content you are about to absorb is not a quick fix. It is not a comfort blanket. It is a reckoning, a summons to look directly at everything you have been avoiding: the fear, the shame, the rage, the boredom, the guilt, the suffocating frustration. All these feelings are not signs of weakness. They are red alerts that the structure of your current life is collapsing because it has reached its expiration date. You are not broken. You are being violently pushed to be born again. This is your moment, and it can no longer be postponed. Most people live their entire lives as functional corpses. They wake up, work, produce, obey, sleep, repeat. They believe this is normal, but it is not normal. It is just common, and common has never been synonymous with being healthy. You were programmed from childhood to seek stability, to follow instructions, to fit into predetermined boxes, to never disturb the peace. The message was relentless. Don't question, be grateful, do what is right, but right according to whom? Right for who? Carl Jung wrote in The Undiscovered Self that the greatest threat to the individual soul in modernity is not insanity or poverty, but massification, the transformation of human beings into statistical units, replaceable parts within a system that values conformity over consciousness. When you begin to suffocate inside your own routine, that sensation is not a defect. It is a signal, a desperate scream from your psyche declaring, "This is not you." You may have followed every rule, graduated, got the job, found the partner, posted the smiling photographs, and still you feel nothing. As if there is a part of you watching your own life from outside your body, horrified and detached. This feeling of dissociation is not illness. It is consciousness attempting to break through the sedation. It is the unconscious screaming that the persona you constructed to survive is no longer sufficient to live. The normality they sold you is a sophisticated cage. It offers small doses of pleasure in exchange for your freedom. You receive social approval, financial stability, family acceptance, but the cost is annihilating. You sacrifice your truth, your internal voice, your spontaneity, your aliveness. And over time, you forget you ever had a self at all. Jung said that adaptation to society is necessary, but it becomes pathological when it demands the abandonment of the self. And that is exactly what has happened to millions of people. They live normal lives while being emotionally anesthetized, spiritually flatlined, existentially lost. The system rewards obedience with distractions. You get Netflix, food delivery, likes on your posts, and a false sense of belonging, all designed so you never have to ask the one question that would destroy everything. Am I living or am I just existing? This collective delusion creates an illusion of safety, but inside, you feel the fracture spreading. You try to silence this agony with productivity, with entertainment, with surface relationships that mean nothing. But no distraction can silence a soul in crisis, and when you finally start to question, the world immediately tries to convince you that you are the problem, that it is just anxiety, just stress, just burnout, that you need a vacation, a hobby, a meditation app. But you know, this is not exhaustion, this is existential horror. You feel that something is fundamentally wrong with your life, not because you are failing, but because you are awake enough to see that the entire structure is corrupted. False normality is a mask for psychic death. It is the consequence of a life guided by obligations instead of meaning. Jung said that the unlived life is a disease from which one can die. And what we witness everywhere are people dying in slow motion, one compromised day at a time, trapped in a narrative that was never written by them. But there is an exit, and it begins with the complete destruction of this facade. The next step is not to go back to sleep. It is to accept that this malaise, this restlessness, this existential terror, these are not symptoms of failure. They are the opening movements of transformation. And that is exactly what we will explore next, why you are not broken, but ready. If this content is cutting through to you, click the subscribe button. Thank you for your support. We exist in a culture that interprets suffering as evidence of failure. If you are in distress, something went wrong. If you feel disconnected, there is something defective about you. If you do not belong, you are the problem. But this interpretation is a violent lie. Suffering is not a defect to be eliminated. It is a message to be decoded, and perhaps for the first time in your life, you are about to understand what it has been trying to tell you. Carl Jung said that the soul refuses to continue the performance when the moment of transformation arrives. What you call an existential crisis, emotional breakdown, or internal void is actually the first movement of a profound awakening process. The despair, the chronic fatigue, the feeling of not belonging anywhere, all of this is the symbolic language of the psyche announcing, you are ready. Ready to shed the persona you have worn like armor for decades, ready to look directly at your shadow, ready to become who you actually are, not who the world conditioned you to be. You may think you are disintegrating, but what is disintegrating is not you. It is the character you created to survive. It is the shell that protected you until now, but is transformed into a tomb. The suffering you feel is not weakness. It is strength screaming to be acknowledged, because only a mature soul has the capacity to confront its own emptiness without anesthesia. Only those who have carried the weight of the lie are equipped to carry the truth. Jung observed that the human psyche intentionally manufactures suffering as a mechanism of transition. When the ego resists transformation, the unconscious responds with symptoms: anxiety, insomnia, apathy, rage, confusion. These symptoms are not obstacles blocking your path, they are the path. They force you to stop performing, to question everything, to look inward. They demand the collapse of the old structure so something authentic can emerge from the wreckage. Society will pressure you to return to normal. Take medication, take a course, read a self-help book, practice gratitude, breathe deeply, and move on. But do not be deceived. That normal is what made you sick. You do not need to go back. You need to go through. You do not need to fix yourself. You need to free yourself. Your pain is a threshold, a symbolic portal between the false life and the real one. If you resist it, it calcifies into chronic suffering. But if you listen to it, it becomes initiation. It is not comfortable. It is not beautiful. It is not fast, but it is real. And above all, it is necessary. Jung asserted that the process of individuation begins when you become exhausted with being fractured, when you realize you can no longer survive on the surface of consciousness, when you understand that you must integrate what has been hidden, your repressed emotions, your unprocessed trauma, your forbidden impulses, your denied desires. This integration is not a spiritual luxury, it is an existential emergency. You are not broken. You are crossing the unmapped territory of your own soul. And every tear, every silence, every moment of feeling utterly lost is part of the navigation. Pain is trying to wake you up. And now that you are beginning to listen, something inevitable occurs. You start to notice that certain messages, people, symbols, even this video, appear in your life with a precision that transcends coincidence. This is what we will examine next, what it actually means when something seemingly random finds you at the exact moment you need it most. Have you ever experienced the sensation that certain things arrive at the precise moment you needed them most? A book that appears from nowhere. A conversation that lands with surgical accuracy. A video like this one that emerges in your feed during a moment of internal collapse. It is not coincidence. It is synchronicity, a fundamental concept proposed by Carl Jung to describe what logic cannot explain, but what the soul immediately recognizes as true. Jung understood that the unconscious is not merely a storage facility for trauma or repressed impulses. It is living intelligence, a dynamic system that continuously attempts to balance, guide, and heal the conscious psyche. When you approach a breaking point, when your soul begins to awaken to a larger truth, the unconscious intensifies its symbolic activity. And it accomplishes this using everything available: dreams, images, emotions, and yes, even algorithms. External reality begins to mirror internal transformation, not because the universe is magically conspiring, but because your psyche is magnetizing precisely what it needs to evolve. When you are ready, the correct symbols emerge, and they do not announce themselves loudly. They whisper. They do not argue. They touch something primal. And you feel, with disturbing clarity, that this message is not generic. It is intimate, directed, undeniable. The unconscious speaks through symbols because it knows the ego resists change. It does not attempt rational persuasion. It suggests, insinuates, leads you down unexpected paths. A song that makes you weep without understanding why. A passage in a book that seems to describe your exact life. A dream that returns obsessively, night after night. These are all forms of communication from the psyche to you, and ignoring them is equivalent to ignoring a sacred summons. Jung stated, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." But when you begin listening to the signs, the unconscious ceases to be a hidden enemy and becomes a subtle ally. It guides you with precision, even if silently. And this video is one of those signs. It did not appear randomly. It is a response to a question you were unconsciously asking, even without knowing you were asking it. If you are here, it is because something in you recognized this content is necessary. You may not even be able to articulate why you clicked play, but your soul knows, and it is pushing you toward the next movement. Because now that you understand you are not broken, that your pain signals readiness, and that the unconscious is guiding you, you must do something with that knowledge. But this next step is not easy, because it requires fear. It demands risk. It means leaving the familiar to dive into the abyss of the unknown. And that is exactly what we will confront next, the terrifying leap that separates the false life from the authentic one. Every process of genuine transformation requires a crossing. And every crossing requires a leap. Not a physical leap, but a psychic one. The moment when you must abandon the narrative that kept you safe, even if miserable, to walk toward a version of yourself you do not yet know. This is the most critical juncture of the individuation process described by Carl Jung. And it is also the point where most people retreat in terror, because the leap is annihilating. It means losing your footing. It means having no guarantees, no maps, no safety nets. It means releasing the carefully constructed persona, the one that brought you this far, but has now become a gilded cage. It means saying no to everything that appears correct on the outside, to finally say yes to what pulses violently on the inside. Jung compared this moment to confronting the inner dragon, an archetype representing every fear, doubt, and resistance that materializes at the threshold of transformation. This dragon will tell you that you are insane, that it is not the right time, that you are unprepared, that you will lose everything, that you will disappoint everyone, that you will regret this forever. It will project every possible scenario of catastrophic failure, because it knows that if you leap, it dies, and the ego fears symbolic death more than any actual pain. But here's the truth. Almost no one has the courage to speak. The fear you feel at this moment is not a warning to retreat. It is confirmation to advance. Fear is the marker that you are precisely at the correct threshold. Jung stated, "The encounter with oneself is, at first, the encounter with one's own shadow. The abyss, the hell from which no one escapes, is the self." This means that before finding freedom, you will be confronted with everything you have spent years avoiding. You will face the terror of rejection, of failure, of loss. You will confront the grief of everything that must die for something new to be born. And that is excruciating. It paralyzes, but it also liberates. Because once you cross, even stumbling, even crying, even doubting, you discover that on the other side of fear, there is life, real life, not survival, not conformity, not performance, but presence, authenticity, and meaning. You do not need to be 100% ready to leap. No one ever is. You just need to be exhausted enough with pretending, disgusted enough with the lie, brave enough to say, "I do not know what comes next, but I cannot remain here." This is the breaking point, the line that separates those who sleepwalk through life from the rare few who dare to awaken. And if you have made it this far, it is because you already feel the urgency of the leap. The only question remaining is, what is still holding you back? In the next part, we will address that directly. Why no one is coming to save you. Why radical responsibility for your life belongs to you now. And only you. This is one of the most brutal truths to absorb, but perhaps the most liberating of all. No one is coming to save you. No person, no guru, no book, no therapist, no video. No external force will arrive to extract you from the hole you are in. No savior will appear to fix your life. Because in reality, that responsibility belongs exclusively to you. And the sooner you accept this, the sooner your true liberation begins. You've been conditioned to wait. To wait for someone to recognize your suffering, for your partner to change, for your employer to value you, for your family to understand you, for the system to finally work in your favor, for perfect timing to materialize, for courage to spontaneously appear. But all of this is illusion. The archetype of the external savior is a childish trap of the collective unconscious. It is the voice of the wounded child still waiting for protection, for comfort, for direction. But you are no longer that child. You are the adult now. And the adult, as agonizing as it may be, must take full ownership of their own journey. Carl Jung was unambiguous. Individuation, this process of becoming who you are, cannot be lived through proxy. No one can walk this path for you, because this path is internal and absolutely singular. Every step must be yours, every choice, every fall, every resurrection. Radical responsibility does not mean you are to blame for everything that has happened to you, but it means that from this moment forward, you are responsible for not remaining where you are. It means that even if the wound was inflicted by others, the healing depends entirely on you. The truth is that the system we inhabit profits from your passivity. It requires you to remain dependent, insecure, obedient, to follow rules without questioning, to consume and numb yourself, to wait for packaged solutions, and you have waited long enough. Enough. This is the moment to sever that emotional, spiritual, and existential dependency. No one is going to knock on your door with a rescue plan. There will be no unmistakable sign from above. There will be no permission granted. There will be no instruction manual. What exists is this growing disturbance inside you, this internal voice that insists, that provokes, that torments, that invites you to act, and that tells you with increasing violence, either you change or you continue dying in microscopic increments. You possess within you every resource required to begin this crossing. But as long as you continue outsourcing your freedom, you will remain imprisoned. As long as you wait for someone to tell you it is acceptable to leave your job, to end the relationship, to start over, you will continue living other people's lives, not your own. The ego will tell you it is impossible, that it is too dangerous, that you are not prepared. But the ego is a coward. It wants only to survive, and your soul wants to live. Taking responsibility for your own life is the beginning of true maturity. It is the moment you stop performing victimhood and start rebuilding yourself in silence, without an audience, without guarantees, but with dignity. And this is where the inevitable question arises. What exists on the other side of this fear? What is there after you accept that you are alone and that the leap depends only on you? The answer Jung gives us is direct, real life, the one you came here to live but have been postponing for far too long. And this is precisely what we will confront next. What exists on the other side of fear and why your authentic life begins exactly where you are most terrified to step. There is an invisible line separating the life you are living from the life you came here to live. This line is not constructed from external obstacles, lack of money, other people's opinions, or circumstances beyond your control. This line is made entirely of fear. The fear of change, the fear of disappointing others, the fear of failure, the fear of stepping out of the cave of normality and walking alone into the wilderness of the unknown. But it is on the other side of this fear that your real life begins. Jung teaches us that fear is not an enemy, it is a guardian of portals. Every time you feel terror about changing, breaking free, taking the risk, it is because you are about to touch something sacred, your true self. The persona you constructed, polite, functional, smiling, was useful to protect you during a certain phase of life. But now it is a mausoleum, and the key to escaping is located in the place you least want to look, within the fear itself. The pain you feel, the anguish that haunts you, the emptiness you attempt to conceal with distractions. All of this is the soul violently trying to push you toward the life that belongs to you. And you know this. You know because you have felt it throughout this entire video. Because even without being able to articulate it, something in you recognizes that these words are for you, not for someone generic, for you specifically. The question now is not whether you are ready, because you will never feel ready. The question is, will you continue dragging yourself through a life that is killing you, or will you cross through the fear and begin to truly live? No one will come to save you. There will be no clearer sign than this moment right now. There will be no manual, but there will be a choice, and that choice is here, now. So leave a mark, a small phrase, a symbolic declaration. Write in the comments, I choose to cross, not for me, for you, because naming is invoking, writing is sealing, and this could be the first conscious decision of the new life waiting for you. And if this video found you when you needed it most, as I know it did, keep watching. The next video is just as crucial as this one. It awaits you as another step on the path you have already begun. Do not stop now.